Hello, everyone, and welcome to Armstrong in the Loop podcast. I'm your host, Seth Prentice, and today I'm joined by Nick Bartley, host of Hunting Nostalgia. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Seth. I appreciate it. This is exciting. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I know we're on a podcast, but you and I are able to see one another through Zoom, and I love your setup behind you, the good old Wing Eagles set up above your head, and all kinds of figures on display.
Yeah. That's my favorite title by far. Looks wise. It looks like the title, you know?
It does. And we'll get more into that here soon. But I wanted to find out more about who you are and how did you become such a collector?
Well, my collecting, it never started out as a collection. My collecting, it was just my toys. It was just the toys. But I always knew, like, there are items that aren't toys that are part of my collection. But I just always knew, like, my brothers and sisters would sell stuff off at yard sales or whatever, they wanted the money to buy something new. I was never like that. I always wanted to keep, these are my childhood toys. I could see my kid was up there and knocked down some of my WCW guys, but it was just the toys. And what's crazy is the toys have led to everything. Like my love for the wrestling figures, the LJN wrestling figures, the big, giant, indestructible rubber figures. That's the reason I started liking wrestling on TV. The toys came first, and it seemed to be that way for, pretty much all of it. G.I. Joe's, the toy came first. It's just the way it is for me. I don't know. I was always attracted to the toys.
So behind you, like I mentioned, you do have a really cool setup. Those are all of your original toys from growing up.
Well, see, I do have, like, these. This is my display. These here, yes, these are my childhood toys. Up here, I'm sorry. I should describe what I'm pointing at. I keep forgetting. Everything I do is so video oriented. I forget, but all of, like, my WCW or the Bendies, the thumb wrestlers, like all of those. Yeah, they're from, unless I find one that's super, super nice, then I'll replace it. You know what I mean? Like the Hasbro figures that I have. When I find a new one, I replace it. And then I preserve the one from my childhood. And I put it back in the vault in the back of the playhouse here.
That's pretty cool, actually. So,
if you know for sure, it's my childhood toy. If it's an LJN and it was a villain at the time, because they don't have a nose, I bit them all off. Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, King Kong Bundy, they all lost their noses to the Hulkster.
Is there anything else besides wrestling that you really collect, even from your childhood or current day?
Everything. Every toy that I've ever owned has now become a part of my collection. Every single thing. You can see I have my Turtles here. I have Food Fighters down below. I have the Barnyard Commandos. I have Masters of the Universe, Star Wars, vintage Star Wars. Anything that I had as a kid, I kept them. So then as an adult, I've grown it to be I'm like, hey, here, I'll grab all my old Star Wars figures from my parents' house. Well, I didn't have this one or this one. And then I can hunt finding them, because whenever I find them, like the YouTube show, Hunting Nostalgia, whenever I find those items that mean something to me from my childhood, boom, that makes me want to, grab more Masters of the Universe or grab more Ninja Turtles, whatever it may be, because it's everything.
When you were growing up, I'm sure you might have missed something along the lines. If it wasn't, if you were in the Turtles, you might have missed the real Ghostbusters, or maybe you missed some of the Batman figures. There's a whole lot coming out, in the 80s and 90s. Did you ever actually miss part, and now you've had to go back and go and get, those missing pieces?
Yeah, I would say so, for sure. Well, there are two very, very sad stories in my collecting days. Very sad. And the first one is Masters of the Universe, and the second one is G.I. Joe. And I had tons of them. I had the play sets. I had everything. I had Castle Grayskull. I had Snake Mountain. And those were the two sets that, I mean, not every single piece, but a lot of them that, and I still don't know who it was, but either my mother or my sister sold them at a yard sale.
Oh,
And then speaking of yard sales, so I knew that was happening. Like, you know, once I realized that was happening, there was one day whenever I was a very young kid, and I mean, I wasn't playing with my LJNs every day, you know, the big rubber ones. I wasn't playing with them every day, but I knew that they were in a suitcase in my room that said, "I heart grandma's house." Like, I knew that this suitcase was, you know, filled with my LJN wrestlers, and my mom loves having flea markets. The hunting of nostalgia runs throughout my family. I mean, my mother, my grandfather, it's a family tradition. And I remember looking up from my bedroom window during this yard sale, and I could see this guy looking through my wrestlers at the yard sale in this suitcase. I lost my mind, and I ran up the hill and I grabbed them and I said, "I'm sorry, these are not for sale." And I looked over at my mom and she said, "I had no idea they were in there." But that was, if I wasn't there, those would have been wiped out, just like my Masters of the Universe and G.I. Joe collection.
you go to a ton of places, you see things all the time. It seem to be currently in today's market more the nostalgia of the stuff we had growing up, or companies like Funko, Mattel, Hasbro, and NECA are then making a product that's actually nicer than what we had back then.
Oh, the actual quality of the toys now are, I mean, they're so much better. They're every single joint moves.
Yep.
You know, the points of articulation, instead of them being 8 for a Hasbro figure, they're like 56
Yep.
with a Ninja Turtles figure that can move every appendage that you ever imagined a turtle possibly having. They're so much nicer, but I don't think the actual quality and not quality, I guess I don't know, they just don't have that same feel. I mean, maybe it's because I'm not a kid anymore, but I know that if my kids, because a few of my children will play with my old toys, and my one child especially, he will choose playing with my toys over brand new stuff. So I guess it's really all up to the user, you know, because I know people who collect vintage toys, who collect the stuff that I love, and they also buy the new stuff, you know. So I guess it's really both ways. Me, I really don't buy new toys. It's a shame, but I'm not
it is
anything.
But I noticed with like NECA, well, you know, we'll get to this one quickly, but you know, the Ninja Turtles coming back out again, and I'm like, man, these are great, but what's wrong with all my, you know, everything that I've had from the 80s and 90s? These things were just as good at, you know, as the current stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think, in my personal opinion, that stuff is way better. I mean,
Yep.
of course it's way better. But you know, if I was a kid now, I'd probably say, you know, your old stuff is awful. Look at that Mikey. You can squeeze his head, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? But the cool characters, like I said, those toys came first for me for a lot of things. I'm not sure if that could happen now. I'm not sure if that could actually happen. Like Masters of the Universe, that literally was how I experienced collecting and toy buying. The toy came before the comic. It came before the cartoon. It came before everything. Like that's staying power. You know what I mean? Because that toy is what made that show so attractive.
I think I can recall getting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Real Ghostbusters as my first, but both were tied into TV shows that were, well, Ghostbusters was rolling off of the movie from the 80s, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was an original comic story, but it didn't have the following until the television cartoon took off.
Definitely, it can definitely work in reverse as well. For sure.
Now,
you know, Turtle, that's a perfect example.
Yeah. Now for, you know, your big love, which is wrestling, you know, those guys are instant made action figures just by looking at them. I mean, you go from the Ultimate Warrior, the Macho Man Randy Savage, Hogan, all these guys, Sergeant Slaughter, Rowdy Piper, these guys look and move and talk like action figures. Or, that love of the LJN, then to Hasbro, then to Jakks, Bendy's, everything in between. What started that love for wrestling, and what point do you want to say that this is where I jumped off wrestling for a bit, or did you always stay on?
Well, wrestling for me started with the toys. I've always loved them. That's been my first, that was the reason. The colors, the shapes, everything, the way they looked, that attracted me to the sport, air quotations, air quotes, of wrestling. But yeah, I never really went away from it. I always will go back and I'll watch it. It's not as good. You don't have the Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey. Oh, yeah. You don't have that anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, you have guys now, and they're not larger than life in my eyes. Some of them are. They're, some of the guys, they are larger than life, but it's not just being big. You don't just have to be a big mastodon, mammoth of a person to be larger than life. Roddy Piper was not a mammoth person, but he was larger than life, because now it seems like wrestling is, you take the actual human being of, let's say, Terry Bollea. You take Terry Bollea and then you just try to make him a super cool, super tough Terry Bollea. Like, that's what wrestling seems to be now. When before it was like, okay, we have this Terry Bollea. What can we make him into to make him larger than life? You know what I mean? Because that was the only life we saw of them. That was the only life we saw, was what was on the TV. They weren't tweeting out, political rants. They weren't, posing with, they weren't telling us even their real names.
Right.
That is larger than life. Now it's like, all right, I'm already this guy. How can I become cool and tough and put me on TV? That doesn't sell to me.
Could you see Randy Poffo actually existing in 2020? Because his gimmick was his real life. Ric Flair is the epitome of 80s wrestling. Everything that you saw with Rick on screen was Rick off camera.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I believe that when Richard Fleer became Ric Flair, I believe that he morphed into, same with Hogan, same with Randy Savage. Randy Savage, though, he might be that one exception to the rule. He might be just, I think he was just a little bit, he used to point up in the air and do a circle. I think his circle, it could have gone around his ear as well. I think he was a little bit nutty.
180 degrees,
Oh, yeah, we'll go to the top. You dig it? Oh, boy. Speaking of that larger than life, going from that, there is someone that he never won a title. He was never maybe he was the main event every once in a while. But to me, as a kid, I was watching this guy stand up for us. The Junkyard Dog, brother. Oh, I'm the king of the WWF. And I loved him so much. I was always dancing like the JYD. Grab them cakes, bro. Like, he was just amazing to me. And he always was a good guy. Like Hogan, He was always a baby face. And I felt like he was always there for me. I don't know why, but the Junkyard Dog, I absolutely loved. And I wish, the title doesn't make the wrestler, Right. Like Ric Flair, the wrestler makes the title. And Junkyard Dog didn't need one because he had all of us, He did get to win the crown every once in a while, but I love the JYD, loved him.
Well, you're very active on social media, and recently you posted JYD LJN, I do believe. What's the story behind it, and why it keeps falling through your fingers?
Well, now the actual LJN JYD, everyone knows he's standing there like a bear hug pose. He came with the dog collar, 3 different versions of the dog collar, the black, the silver, and the red. That was the LJN, okay? And I have him But what I don't have for, I think it was 86, the LJN line came out with the stretch figures like Stretch Armstrong, but they made them into WWF superstars. Rowdy Roddy Piper, Junkyard Dog, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, King Kong Bundy. There was Hogan. They all had a stretch figure. But the one that I wanted was the Junkyard Dog. I love the Junkyard Dog, and that's who I wanted, and I got him for Christmas. I think I was probably, I'd say 8, I guess, and I got him for Christmas. And there's photos of me with him. I remember playing with him, but I also remember one day underneath his armpits, from pulling them so much, they both tore. And it looked like glue just started coming out of his armpits. And that was one figure that it didn't make it with me to my collection now. It kills me. It kills me because I could have kept better care of it, but I wasn't planning on being a toy collector as a kid. You know what I mean? But that one haunts me. I look at it. It's on eBay right now for $349. I could buy it, but not a single item. I have thousands and thousands of items, and not a single item has ever come from eBay.
Wow. That's impressive, actually. Seeing your collection on camera, that's only, I'm sure, a fraction of it. But you've never bought anything for your collection from eBay?
Not a single item from the internet, from eBay, Amazon. I have traded stuff with people on Instagram.
Okay, yeah.
And like people have offered, hey, do you want, I'll give you this much for that. And I say, I'd much rather trade, because it is not about the money. It is not about the money in any way. I love trading. I even love giving toys away. Like, that is one of my favorite things, when I can find something on an episode of Hunting Nostalgia and then give it to somebody that makes them feel that same exact feeling that I'm hunting for. That is the whole goal of what I do.
That's really cool. And before we get there, my last question for you is more of from my fandom of what they are and what they've meant. And hopefully it looks like they might be bringing them back, are the pillow wrestlers, or they've had numerous names over the year, but like the original set, which was Hogan, Warrior, Macho Man, DiBiase. Am I missing someone from that original? There you go.
I just so happen to have them all sitting next to me right now. Jake the Snake?
Yes, Jake the Snake. That was the other one.
Yeah. They were my best friends. I love these guys. As a kid, this is what I would do. I'd go outside and I'd wrestle them for hours and hours. These exact ones. These flimsy, I beat the stuffing out of them. I know, but what's crazy is that I've loved these wrestling buddies. I have actually some prints up behind me of the original design of the wrestling buddies. Through the magic of Instagram, I met the creator of Wrestling Buddies. Her name is Stephanie Clark Iskander. And just through, talking, and we text, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But she is an amazing designer. And she sent me these prints of the original artwork from the Wrestling Buddies. And whenever I go out to different places, attics, antique stores, wherever I'll go, I'll look for items for Stephanie and I'll send them to her. She likes hunting for items as well. Her Instagram name is Steph Designs Toys, and she is amazing. The stuff, she has worked for so many different companies and made so many different toys. You won't believe it. You will not believe it. Girls, boys, everything. It's amazing.
I do believe Stephanie has an upcoming book that, if it hasn't been published, it will be coming out, that she shows off all of her old original designs, everything from the Wrestling Buddies to the cupcake toys of the 90s. And she's always said that her greatest love has been these Wrestling Buddies.
I can't blame her one bit. They're amazing. It's amazing. It is part of so many little, no little boy that was wrestling this whenever they were 10 years old thought, man, the lady that designed this was really great. You know what I mean? Like, they're not thinking of that, but my goodness, she is an amazing person. And yes, her book is coming out soon. I cannot wait to get it. The stories of the behind the scenes, creation of these items that have meant so much to us as children. I cannot wait to read it. I agree with her. Best thing she ever made. I can't wait for her to hear that.
Do you think if Tonka wasn't bought that there would have been a Series 3?
Oh, I hope. I hope so. I mean, I know they had the LOD. I would have loved to have seen some of the, a little bit later 90s stars. As I would have loved to have had the best there is, the best there was, and I am the best that there ever will be. I would love to see a Bret Hart wrestling buddy. You know what I mean? I actually did that impression. I had won a lunch with Bret Hart in 2011. I won a 2-hour lunch at the Tilted Kilt. It was a contest on 93.7 The Fan. And you had to call in and you had to do your best wrestling promo, but it had to be sports related on the air. This was, I think, the first year The Fan was around. So I heard the tail end of the advertisement when they said, win a lunch with Bret Hart. I'm like, that cannot possibly be the prize for something. So I sat in my car at work and I waited for that advertisement to run again. And that's what it was. So I called in. I was the second caller, and it was a week-long tournament to see who would win this lunch with the Hitman. And I was number 2. And right after I went, I did what I did was I did a play on how James Harrison of the Steelers was in a war with Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL. Like, that was the whole promo. So I was pretending to be James Harrison's – I stole this promo. I was pretending to be James Harrison's manager, and I was calling out Roger Goodell. Let me see if I can remember it. I said, let me tell you something there, Mr. Roger Goodell. I am the hit maker. I am the record breaker. I got style and grace, and I got one scary face. I will make your back crack and your liver quiver. And Mr. Goodell, when you're in the back and you're laughing and joking, you got James Harrison. I'm in the Berg, baby, and I'm cooking and smoking. As soon as I was done, Josh Miller said, this was Monday. It went till Friday. The second I was done, Josh Miller said, that's it. That guy just won. And I did. I held up and I won all the way to the end of Friday.
So how was lunch with Bret Hart then?
Oh my gosh. It was, sometimes whenever it either goes one or two ways. You're meeting your hero. It's either everything you imagined and way more, or it is a massive disappointment. The Hitman, it was like I knew him for years. It was like we were best buddies. I did that impression. I did my Bret Hart impression for Bret Hart. I did the promo for Bret Hart. After I did his impression for him, he was laughing, and he looked at me and he goes, do I really sound like that? I said, you do. I said, you sound just like it. But he was so cool. He was so amazing. It was a great, great day. We talked about the only wrestling we really talked about was his relationship with Owen. Everything else had to do with hockey, baseball, or his new house in Hawaii. That's what our entire lunch was. It was unreal.
That's awesome. And what an experience, because not too many people can say that they've had lunch with the Hitman.
Oh, it was an honor. I'll remember it. I have photos. I'll remember it the rest of my life.
Well, Nick, let's switch gears here. We love your show, Honey Nostalgia, on YouTube. How did you come up with the idea?
Well, it's ridiculous. I'll tell you now. How the way that I came up with the idea is absolutely absurd. But I guess it would have been 3 years ago. I wanted to create a way to get people to sit and listen to me talk about toys that I loved as a kid. So I was trying to think, how can I captivate someone for that 2 minutes just to listen, even if it's at my own expense, even if they're looking, because this guy is such an idiot, I have to see what is going on with him. So, and this is no lie, I would shave half of my face bare, and I would leave this half of my face stubble. I would slick back this side of my hair, and I would frizz out this side of my hair, and I wore these glasses. One side was sunglasses, and the other side were bifocals. I created a duo And it was, I don't even know if I could still do it. They were supposed to be cousins, but it was just me going back and forth on camera, showing one half of my face. They were supposed to be cousins, but what I created was, let me see if I can do it. It's Boris and Bart with the super short retro toy report. So one guy was a massive nerd, and the other guy was his cousin who hated toys. He cannot stand toys. They are for children. You are not a man. Like, so I would literally sit in front of a camera and I would make fun of myself while talking about toys, just to catch somebody's attention, to watch me for 2 minutes on Twitter or Instagram, just to watch my, ridiculousness. I had, and no joke, I had people send me messages arguing with me about my videos that clearly it's me doing because it's on video. It's me doing 2 voices and turning my head, and I got hate mail. People were like, "You're so wrong about that toy." I'm like, and no matter what, every single skit, I would do both points of view. You know what I mean? I would do the nerd collector. His name was Bart, and I do the nerd collector point of view. And then his cousin would make fun of his toys. Your little girl toys. So I would do that because I wanted to have both of those worlds. And I wanted to look so silly that I would absolutely, without a doubt, capture somebody's attention. That was my goal. And it worked. I guess it would have been September 23rd of 2018. I was contacted by a casting director for a toy show. That's all I knew. She said, "I heard you're a collector. I've saw you on Instagram. I want to talk to you." The first, was hilarious. The very first thing she said to me was, "I'm not interested in Boris and Bart." And that was the 2 characters. But that was, September 23rd, 2018, this casting director contacted me. And right off the bat, I didn't believe that this woman was who she said she was. I never expected in a million years for someone to reach out like that quickly, So I looked into her, and that night I found out, my goodness, she exactly was who she said she was. And she was working for a media company called Cineflex Media. And I looked into them, and they're the creators of American Pickers. They're the creators of Property Brothers, of all these different shows. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is a real opportunity for me. I'm like, I can't wait. This is unbelievable. So the next day I was prepared. I had, if anyone's ever seen me, I had my hunting hat on, and I was sitting in my truck waiting for this interview. So the woman calls, and I answered the phone, and it was just like we're doing now. It was a Zoom call. It was Skype. But she said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in my truck." And she goes, "I have to see you." She said, "This is for television." And I thought, oh my gosh, I looked like an idiot. I was all disheveled, sweaty. And so we did it. I set my camera up in the car. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours during our interview. And she's like, "Listen," she's like, "I have been looking for somebody for this project for a year." She's like, "I've been looking for somebody." She said, "You are my guy." She says, "I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to pitch you to Cineflex." And the idea from Cineflex at that moment, it was a show, and they wanted me. And at that time, it was my Uncle John. I guess he's about 18 years older than me. They wanted 2 generations of hunters, and they wanted us traveling the country collecting toys, just toys. And then they wanted us selling those toys exactly like the American Pickers. And if you you know me enough to know that's not my style. I don't search for that money. I don't search for the dollar sign. So that was the only part of that project I wasn't thrilled about. But hey, these people were pitching me to the History Channel. I didn't care what they were. I would have danced on a ball if they would have told me to do it. You know what I mean? So it was for the Discovery Channel, History Channel, Netflix. They pitched they pitched me and my uncle heavily. Then they contact me again saying, we loved you. We want to get a girls aspect on the show. So unfortunately, I knew at that point that meant my uncle was no longer going to be considered for the role, which was upsetting for me. But, I was willing to do whatever they wanted me to do at the time. So that's when they introduced me through Skype to the absolutely amazing Elvira Taylor. She lives in Orlando, and she has this channel on YouTube with 74,000 subscribers called the Doll Circle. And she opens up new dolls. She has hundreds and thousands of Barbie dolls. I've sent her some myself. I will send items back and forth to each other. So they introduced me to Elvira. And I've never met Elvira, but through what we were doing, we were collecting content for Cineflex on our own. We were collecting just different bits for them to put together in a promo for these networks, like the Discovery Channel and the History Channel. They wanted to have a package of us. So we were up here. I was up here. She was in Florida. And we were shooting this simultaneously to send to Cineflex Media. Okay, so this is now, fast forward, it is February 2020. And we just put our tiny, it is 2 minutes and 36 second video. Well, I didn't put it together. Cineflex put together our video package, and it was 2 minutes and 36 seconds of us, a little song in the background of us digging through attics and doing our thing. And they loved it. They were getting ready. It was a whole new package. It was called, the name of this show was Retro Hunters Go. Not the greatest, but hey, like I said, whatever they wanted me to do, I was laying down. I was going to do it. And so Elvira and I hit it off right away. We have the same concept for collecting. We don't care if it's covered in bird poop or whatever it may be. As long as it holds that personal feeling to us, we're taking it. Like, that is what we're here for. So I met her, and we signed our contract together with Cineflex Media on March 13th of 2020. We were supposed to meet up in North Carolina. Elvira and I were to meet up in North Carolina, and we were to travel to Los Angeles together, talking to collectors, hunting for items, going to antique stores, flea markets, garage sales, searching for that feeling. That's what we were doing. But at that time, they still wanted us searching for that holy grail item. They wanted us finding that item that was worth a ton of money. And it wasn't quite, the whole feeling thing, that's great. They got that directly from me. There's no, they got that idea from me, but the whole money concept was what they were hooked on, that was going to sell, Retro Hunters Go. People were interested in that money aspect, which I totally respect. But like I said, it was signed, and then a week later, the world exploded. COVID hit everything, and that was, we're still waiting. We're still waiting on the world to reopen. So we can't meet up meet up, and we can't even film our pilot. It was really frustrating. So I was pitched last year. The History Channel had the the pleasure of seeing my face in 2 separate pitches about retro toys, but nobody's really doing anything. If you see any reality TV right now, it's pretty much shot from people's kitchens or whatever it is. But I'm still doing it.
So you and Elvira, then, did you just take all the footage that you had saved and you turned it into Hunting Nostalgia?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Some of that, I would say the first 3 episodes, there's 8 episodes in the first season of Hunting Nostalgia. Hunting Nostalgia was never intended for the YouTube. It was never intended for YouTube. Like, I'm not tech savvy. I can't edit videos. I can't do this stuff. Like, if you've seen Cobra Kai, I am Johnny Lawrence. I can't do like this stuff. I look at these things. I'm like, what is this? Like, I can't function that way. I was absolutely thrilled that they were willing to do all that, technical work that I could not do for me. That's what I've always been waiting for. But whenever COVID happened, and I knew that my contract on Cineflex was on hold. So Cineflex is not actively pitching Hunting Nostalgia. So I'm allowed to do whatever I want. I can do shows with you. I can do whatever I want. Before I was not, and this is the one thing that bothers me so bad about everything that's happened COVID-wise. 2 weeks, no, it was a week after I signed my deal with Cineflex, I got a phone call from the Rachel Macy casting agency, and they said, we want to fast track you in an audition for an A&E show with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon about in-ring wrestling collectibles. And I said, I signed a contract a week ago.
Oh,
I am literally not even allowed to tell you what it is about. And I told her, and I will never forget where I was. I was right over there on the phone with her, with this woman from Rachel Macy, and I had to tell her that I wasn't able to audition for a show with Stephanie and Triple H.
so with your show, you have 8 episodes, and I think they're all a little unique. Some of them are you actually going to collectors' homes, and some of them are you actually out there hunting and finding nostalgia. What do you enjoy doing more?
Well, I love hunting. I do. I love going out and finding that one item that feels like it's been sitting there for me. This sucker has been in this attic covered in soot. And I know that this old box of 1991 Superman Valentines was waiting for me to find it. I love that feeling. I love it. But whenever I do meet and interview these collectors, I learn so much. It's unbelievable. Like, each one of them, I feel like whenever I interview them, it's not really an interview. It's really just like Mr. Rogers used to do. I've been called the Mr. Rogers of collecting before, Mr. Rogers of toys, and I love it. It's an absolute honor because I feel like I'm conveying that message perfectly. If someone calls me that, even if it is in a little bit of a jab kind of way, it's a great feeling because I feel like I'm conveying my message correctly. Because I wanted to feel like it's just my friends. Because through filming Hunting Nostalgia, every single person that has appeared on the show is now my friend. I text them back and forth. Like, it's all about that being friends and sharing that knowledge. The knowledge and the love of collecting. I learned something amazing each and every time I talk to one of these guys. So I would have to say, of the two things, probably the conversations with the collectors are my favorite thing.
Season 2 is getting ready to premiere. When can we expect to see new episodes?
Oh, man. Well, I'll give you a hint that the first one is going to be centered around video games, which I'm excited about. But with everything that's going on, it's really hard to make things work with everybody because I don't just do it myself. Hunting Nostalgia is not just me and Elvira, acting crazy in front. I mean, I know that if you've watched the episodes, you've heard the angry cameraman. He's there too. But, we're all characters, but there are so many people who help. Otherwise, like, even the theme song was written by my uncle. He writes jingles. He does stuff like that. A lot of help goes into it. So it's really hard to get everybody together, in the COVID era. But very soon, I'm going to say within the next 3 weeks.
All right. We'll share it in the episode notes, but let the audience know how they can watch your episodes and interact with you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, all under Hunting Nostalgia. And, when the season's going on, I try to have a new episode every other Friday. There's always something interesting for everybody, girls, boys, young, old. I really try to connect with everybody on Hunting Nostalgia because truthfully, it is the hunt And it is our history, it is our personal history, our collections, and that's what I love to explore. And you can find us on Hunting Nostalgia on YouTube, me and Elvira Taylor. It is quite a thrill to do it. I got to tell you that. I love the feedback that I get from people. It's the best. I wish I was doing it on the History Channel, but hey, I'm willing to wait.
Well, Nick, I have my fingers crossed for you. I can't wait to hopefully see you on some big TV channel here in the near future. Thank you so much for spending time with us, joining us, sharing stories, sharing your passion for this stuff. I love it. And hopefully we can catch up again sometime soon.
Oh, thanks, Seth. Hey, thank you for having me. Whenever I saw your message pop up, I was like, oh my gosh, I love doing stuff like this, man. I'd have just done this with you if it was just you and me.
Well, Nick, thank you. Take care, and we'll look forward to season 2.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
For Armstrong in the Loop podcast, I'm Seth Prentice, keeping you in the loop. Are you enjoying Armstrong in the Loop podcast? Great news! All past and current episodes are available on popular streaming apps and websites. Search Armstrong in the Loop podcast and subscribe today.